welcome to our talk this evening. We are fortunate to have the curator and collector of the item in the exhibition upstairs on miniatures and ancient Chinese society, sharing his knowledge and his perspective with us this evening. Francis Lee is both a collector and curator, especially of the Curator International Art Consultant, and so has this expertise in the collecting and connoisseurship of art, but also a scholarly part. The company itself also gives advice to collectors and shares its knowledge to the society, and this exhibition is part of this sharing and this talk too. Beside his interest in collecting, Francis Lee is fellow of the Royal Asiatic Society of Great Britain and Ireland and member of the International Society for Chinese Philosophy. So he has both an interest in what we would call Asian studies and connection between China, Asia, and Europe that is shown in the exhibition, and a specific interest in Chinese philosophy. Now I will simply leave the floor to Francis Lee and just tell you that after the session of the part of talk that will end around 7:05, we will have a Q&A and then a concluding part with gifts.
Okay. Thank you so much, Marco, for the very brief, very good introduction. And thank you, Alice and Diana, for organizing this meaningful exhibition. And it's my pleasure again to be here the second time and deliver a speech about miniatures in the ancient Chinese and Southeast Asian societies. I would like to begin by what is miniature. In Chinese, 小品, 小品, it is a smaller version of a normal life-size thing. And these small objects could have different possible functions. They could be burial gifts, devotional items, toys, collectibles for literati, or sometimes maybe the product samples carried by our ancestors, the merchant during that time. As a devotional item, I suggest as a viewer of this exhibition, you can take a look at that Chung-hung, which is from Shui to early Tang Dynasty, 1,300 years ago. It is in gilt bronze, 鎏金, gilt bronze. It is a miniature version that facilitates the travelers to bring them this kind of thing along with the Buddha in worshiping in every occasion. That is, they make miniatures just because they can bring these kind of things along with them to worship them during their journey. And as a toy, some may know that there's a sport called golf. The golf ball, which is quite similar to this one, this is one of the exhibits. This is one of the exhibits in first floor, and it was made in Jin to Yuan dynasty, already 800 years ago. And some students, I think, may know that China was the first country which invented football. But anyone may know, who know, China is also the first country which invented golf in Tang Dynasty. And you can see at our right-hand side, there's a picture painted by a Song scholar. In this picture, you can see two children playing with a small ball called Choi Wan, Choi Yun. It is one of the origins of golf ball during that time. And in Ming Dynasty, even they used they used a rocket to play with the ball. And this kind of sport was not exclusively for men, but also for ladies. And the miniatures can be used as collectible for literati, the intellectuals during that time. And this can be seen by appreciating the scholarly objects from Northern Song Dynasty. As everyone may know, there's a very famous painting, 清明上河圖, which drawn about the capital of Northern Song Dynasty, Kaifeng, during 11th to 12th century. And during that time, our ancestors had a very high level of art connoisseurship. And this kind of thing were made in the Hebei province. And the capital, Kaifeng, was located at the present day Henan province, which is not far away. And this kind of thing can be used as a water pot, as well as a brush washer, which the intellectuals during that time used it to wash their ink pen. Yeah, to pour some water into the water pot, and I use the water to wash the ink pen. And some may say, just like the American-based collector Simon Harmon, during an interview, she said that these kind of miniatures can be used as a product samples that were brought by the merchants traveling along the boundary of China. And these kind of Ware vessels, which was made in 8th to 9th century AD, already 1,200 years ago, was the first version of porcelain. You know, China was a country which invented porcelain as well. And these kind of things, the similar ones, could be found in Europe. You know, Germany was the first country which invented porcelain among the European countries. And the first kind of porcelain piece was emerged in the German market was in early 18th century. That is the late Kangxi period of Qing Dynasty. That is, the Chinese in Tang Dynasty already led the porcelain making industry in the world during that time. And as burial gifts, which I would like to elaborate a bit more. Burial gifts in Chinese, 冥器, 冥器, some may say 冥器, which can be translated as in English, spirit article. These are the portable tomb furnishings. The furnishings mainly objects or figures that are specially designed and produced for the dead. Unlike the daily utensils, they are not for daily use. You can refer to one of our exhibits, which was made from in Eastern Jin Dynasty, Western to Eastern Jin Dynasty in 2 to 3rd century AD. This kind of thing you can refer to the spoons and 2 cups. They are sticked on the plate, so no one can use it. And it is definitely a very good example of a spirit article. And it can be classified, the tomb furnishings, into 3 different categories. The first one, like what I have explained, was the spirit articles. And the second one was daily utensils, the vessels for daily use, the shangqi, is leaf objects. And the third one, which were exclusively for the government officials, which were previously used in communal ritual affairs. That is a 祭器 sacrificial vessels. And in some archaeological sites of some which were belong to the government officials in China, you can easily find some sacrificial vessels, which includes the bronze tripod, the bronze tripod cup, the jugboy, and bronze tripod means 铜鼎, these kind of things. And one of the Confucianism thinker, Sun Tzu, which was lived during the Warring States period, used the terms 明器 and 生器 to designate two types of burial goods. And according to a commentator of protocols of ceremony in Yilai, that is Jiang Shuan, a deceased high official was entitled to bring with him not only 明器 and 生器 but also 祭器, what like I have shared a minute ago. But how could a 明器 be distinguished from practical utensils and sacrificial vessels? According to Yilai, these are the English translation of the same paragraph of Yilai, which was written in classical Chinese. In dealing with the dead, if we treat them as if they were entirely dead, that would show a want of affection and should not be done. If we treat them as if they were entirely alive, that would show a want of intelligence and should not be done. But to summarize this long paragraph, I would say Sun Tzu's conclusion was inspirational, very inspiring. The spirit articles should resemble real objects but not be usable. That is, 名器貌而不用. It has its face. It looks similar, but you cannot use it because you are alive. And these kind of things were especially and exclusively made for the dead, for the dead soul. So 名器 should retain in the form of practical objects, but negate their usefulness, just like that one, another exhibit. Originally it is a jar or a bowl with a handle, but it is not hollow. It is solid. It cannot be used, but it can be suitable. It could be suitable for burial purpose. And a scholar who is now the professor of art history in University of Chicago, Wu, he wrote a book called The Arts of Yellow Springs, which a number of PowerPoints I quote his argument. It is his analysis of 名器. He said there are two significance for the study of the ancient tombs about 名器. Actually, we would like to examine their material and visual properties and to trace their regional variations and historical development. And the second is the distinct form and meaning of spirit articles can be recognized only in comparison with other types of objects in the tomb. Therefore, you can refer to a 名器 and use it as a comparative example with the daily utensils, so as to learn about the burial culture of a tomb during a particular period. And the earliest spirit articles in China were special earthenware, pottery, made for the dead. And some may say the production of pottery and ceramic spirit vessels continued into later periods until Tang Dynasty, Song Dynasty, or even Qing Dynasty. So there's a major dramatic change took place from Eastern Zhou. Eastern Zhou can be divided into two periods. The first part would be spring and autumn period, Chun Chao, and the second part, the later part, would be Jingguo, Warring States period. These kind of vessels were replaced by sculptural forms representing human and animal figures. That is Yong. Yong means as a figure, pottery figure, which can be very big, just like the first emperor mausoleum, Chun Qi Huangbing Ma Yong. But it is not the usual size. It is a 1:1 ratio to a human, 1.8 meters, slightly even taller than the average human height. But it is only, according to the most updated archaeological reports, the first emperor mausoleums, the terracotta warriors, the size, is unique, are unique. No other tombs can make these kind of big figures. All of the other tombs, all of the entire tombs, they make smaller ones. That is another extension of the word miniatures. These are the figures excavated in the northern region a few decades ago and were published and collected by the Japanese since 1950s. They were the painted pottery figures from Warring States period. You can refer to their faces, which is quite abstract and quite modern. Some may say it inspired the contemporary artists, where I may agree with that. Yeah. The figures, smaller figures in the left-hand side, the heights of them are only 7.8 centimeters, whereas the biggest one in the right-hand side, which is about 20 centimeters, which is not far smaller than the terracotta warriors in Xi'an. And the scholar Wu Hong used miniaturization to describe this phenomenon. It is an essential feature of Chinese tomb figures. And all Eastern Zhou, just like what we have seen, the figures are limited in size. Another tourist point in Xi'an, perhaps you will definitely, I recommend you to visit this tomb. That is the Sawankhalok by Emperor James of Western Han Dynasty, which is located near the Qianyang Hanyang Airport. Very convenient when you travel to Xi'an. Please spend 1 to half hour to that big mausoleum. This is one of the biggest tomb, the emperor's tomb in Western Han Dynasty. And indeed, Emperor Jing was the father of Hormuzai. But the figures discovered in that tomb are only 1/3 of a Qin Dynasty warrior, terracotta warrior in height. These are the cultural relics excavated in that site. What we call stick men, just like they are so slim, like a stick. But you can refer to the color, and all of them are nude. They didn't wear any clothes, just because all of the clothes were made of silk or cloth, which were corroded through years of burying. And you can see they don't have hands, just because all of their hands were made of wood. They were also corroded through ages. And they can be considered miniatures, not only in comparison with their natural models, but also because of their limited height. And it is, I think, is a conscious decision. It is a conscious decision to drastically reduce the scale of tomb figures. And I think some other archaeological reports may say that along with the terracotta small figures buried in the Yangling, some half-tail coins, also in miniature size, were discovered. The diameters the largest one would be 9 to 10 millimeters. But the smaller one could be 4 to 5 or 4.5 millimeters. And these coins, actually another part from another part of my collection, were excavated in Yangling. But they are not in large quantity. They are quite really rare, I think. You can refer to the word unlearn on the coin surface. But why didn't the Han emperors, they are rich and wealthy enough to follow the first emperor Chun-hung's example and furnish their tombs with life-size sculptures? You know, according to the excavations of Yangling, which was no less ambitious, it was no less ambitious to that of the first emperor's mausoleum in concepts. The basic purpose of the Han tablets was to fashion a miniature world. You know, the miniatures in Han Dynasty not only substitute for the real human world, but also they would like to create a world that is free from natural laws of our life world, thereby extending the life in perpetuity. Disparity in figures, physical dimensions became even more pronounced in early town tombs. And I think the figures of identical types were rendered in different sizes. It depends on two factors. The first is the degree of importance of a figure in the constructed afterlife of the deceased. If the size of a figure excavated in the Tang Dynasty tomb was very high, which means that figure was very significant to the dead body, and vice versa. And the placement of a figure inside a tomb can also be a very crucial factor. How it was placed. Were they placed near the coffin of that body, or were they placed outside the tomb store? It would be the important factors to determine which one is important and which one is not. And according to my research in 2011, 5 years ago, I presented my viewpoint in the Paris University. I say that the order of placing the figures in the Tang Dynasty tomb was applied according to a book called Lai, the books of rites. There's a chapter called Ming Tong Wei, which argue about how to make the officials stand properly in the imperial court. 上朝嘅時候，啲人應該點企啊？咁你死咗之後，咁又可以係點樣去報翻個局出嚟？係嘛？ So according to town official regulations, the tomb figures, the making of tomb figures has some very strict limitations. Some may say they are not exceed about 30 cm height, and some of them, for the musicians and the attendants, were not to be taller than about 20 cm. But according to the excavated examples, these kind of regulations were seriously violated by other officials or some officials which live far away from the central government. 地方政府, the local government, just violate the rules, rule of law. And in reaction to such violation, some ritual specialists, especially for those in Song Dynasty, were advancing correct behavior in conducting funerary rites. You know, Song Dynasty was an emergence of the Neo-Confucianism. Among them, one scholar who was actually the great thinker until now, was called Zhu Xi, Zhu Hei. Zhu Xi wrote his influential family rights, 朱子家来. Through Zhu Xi's family rights, I can find a sentence which can be referred to to our content today. It's carved wood to make carts and horses, male and female servants, and all the things needed to care for the deceased. The objects should resemble those used in real life, but be smaller. That is Zhu Xi followed his ancestors' regulations. Since Sun Tzu talked about the funeral rites, and Han Dynasty, they practiced by burying miniatures in the tombs or even mausoleums, the emperor's tombs. So a similar statement also exists in Sima Guang's writing, also Wrong Taipei, writing on rituals. Sima Guang was the author of a very famous book called 资治通鉴. These instructions provided fundamental guidelines in funerary practices when New Confucianism became the official doctrine during the Ming and Qing dynasties. These kind of burial cultures, and you can easily look at them through visiting the Shanxi National Provincial Museum, 陝西歷史博物館, the 省立博物館. In that museum, I was deeply inspired by the whole set of terracotta figures, various attendants and women being put together, and they were excavated in a prince from Ming Dynasty. That prince tomb was found in the Shanxi province, and it was actually one of the prince from Ming Dynasty. And the second part of the talk is of my sharing is about the relationship between China and Southeast Asia. You know, one of the purpose of organizing this miniature exhibition is to let everybody knows about the culture between East and the West, and how to compare, and how to learn more about the historical background of the One Belt, One Road relationships. You know, China and Southeast Asia the relationship can be traced back to 2,000 years ago, but until Tang Dynasty in 7th century AD, ceramics began entering the life of maritime Southeast Asia. And there's a guy called Jiu Yusek, who was a superintendent of trade and minor member of the Song imperial family, as his surname was Zhao, Chung-hung, recorded his description of barbarian peoples. This book is very famous if we would like to look in more detail about the Southeast Asian relationships. That merchants long had traded Chinese pottery and other goods for Southeast Asian pearls, tortoise shell, beeswax, and incense woods. And Charles Jiu Yusek recorded that in the Philippines, outsiders are greatly feared natives. The natives, the Touyang, were shooting arrows at passers-by. They feel they were in threat, they were very dangerous, so they so-called attacked the merchants visiting the islands. However, according to Zhao, when a trader takes them a porcelain jar, they bow and take it, and then uttering cries of joy and ran away with it. These are the jars excavated, many of them have been excavated in the Philippines. And the far right, you can see one of the exhibits in this exhibition. That is a Yuan Dynasty blue and white. These are the jarlets for special purpose. You know, from a historical source, in 1599, two Catholic fathers, the Catholic priests, visit Philippines in the island of Bohol. In their diary, they record, during one visit in which we made to the town of Lobo, a significant thing occurred to do away with their delusions and rid them of certain apprehensions which the devil has implanted in them. A constable gave us notice that in one village nearby there was a chief who in his house kept many cups and small jars, which are quite similar to the Yuan Dynasty blue and white jar, full of charms, together with other instruments for casting lots and divining whether in case of illness sacrifice should be offered to the devil. You know, the Filipino during that time were Toyan native people, and they didn't have the experience in study, and as their country during that time was so small, and their culture was underdeveloping, and they were ignorant, culturally ignorant, and superstitious, very mindful. You see how it happens. One of the Father Gabriel, decided to go visit there, and none of the Indians who were with him daring in any way to touch the objects, touch the small jars, because they are very so afraid of the devils inside the jars, so-called devils inside the jars. Maybe in the jars there were the dead body, bone ashes, the blood. Maybe there were some taboo materials, 啲符咒嗰啲、忌諱嗰啲， or even the native people believe that there's a number of ghosts can be feed inside, 養鬼仔 also. So this kind of superstitious behavior may let the native people believe that if those objects were thrown into the water, the crocodiles would become enraged against them, attack them. But the father, who would like to defend the Catholic belief, took the things out and burned it and thrown into the river, thrown all of the small jars with bone ashes or some other materials, taboo materials, into the river. And thus were those people undeceived and were brought closer to their own true and unconquerable Catholic religion. That is why Philippines today, the national religion of that country is Catholic. That is the reason, one of the reasons. And the Batiks in Southeast Asia of northern Sumatra, it is located in the present day Indonesia. They use jars from Ming Dynasty for holding medicines and magic potions. At the left-hand side, we can see two Celadon, Longchuan Celadon jars, miniature jars. At the right-hand side, we can see a similar one, but made by a Thai from the Sawankhalok Valley, imitating the design of Fujian and Jiangxi style of porcelain, the porcelain style. And a number of shipwrecks were discovered in the past few decades. Among them, the Pandanan wig and Taurian wig, and also the Hoi An wig were discovered along the the coastal area of Southeast Asia. Hoi-an was discovered in the coastal area of a city called Hoi-an, Wuimuan Changshu. And 250,000 pieces were discovered. Most of them were from Vietnam. And they are not the porcelainous type. They are only stoneware. And two of our exhibits were believed to be found in the Hoi-an shipwreck. And they were sunk on the way to ports in continental and maritime Southeast Asia. And also they all carried pottery from different regions of East Asia. It proves that the Chinese, Vietnamese, and Thai wares are similar in shape and decoration, and probably as a consequence of clients in the Philippines and Indonesia ordering design pottery by sending their drawings and wooden models to various kiln centers during that time. They have very solid communications between different cultures and different regions. And the ceramics of Southeast Asia were greatly influenced by China, as the Vietnam border on China, and its pottery owed a much greater depth to the technology and aesthetic traditions in the Middle Kingdom, China, than that made in Cambodia and Thailand. And a legend told us that a Chinese potter came to the Hong River Valley, Hong Ho. It's a tapping era again. It's a tapping era. Hong River Valley is a Hong Ho, Samgok, the Delta, in the early 2nd century AD, where Vietnam during that time was the territory controlled by the Han Dynasty. And Chinese culture continued to hold large sway in elite circles of Annam, Vietnam, not only because of the outlook of Viet aristocrats, but also as a consequence of turmoil to the north impelling well-to-do Chinese to seek safety in the Han River Delta. And you know, one of the historical sources told us that when the Southern Song was defeated by the Mongolians, 30 ships, actually filled with refugees, escaped to Hanoi. And when Mongol troops invaded Annam in 13th century, they discovered more than 400 senior Song nobles or bureaucrats and court officials living there, which shows that the Southern Song people and the noblemen of Song Dynasty fled to Vietnam after they lost their country. And in fact, before conquering the Southern Song, the Mongolian Empire conquered Tibet and the Dali Kingdom, Dailiguo, which is nowadays Yunnan. And the boundary, which is directly in touch, directly in touch with Vietnam. That's why Kublai Khan, demanded white pottery in tribute from Annam. According to the Yuanshi, the history of Yuan Dynasty, written by the early Ming scholar Song Liu, records that according to the edict issued by Kublai Khan in the year 1262, Kublai Khan defined the form of tribute that he expected a Vietnamese prince to supply the following year. And one of the gifts presents were the white porcelain bowls, Bak Qi Zhan, because Yuan Dynasty, the courtmen and the noblemen in Yuan Dynasty, the Mongolians, believed that white color is a lucky color. And it is one of the good color admired by the Buddhism. Buddhist priest in Tibet， 因為喇嘛教係崇尚白色係吉祥色，咁所以佢哋就好中意白色。但係當時 Celadon was not conquered by the Mongolians. That's why they asked Vietnam people to supply the white porcelain bowls. In the early Ming Dynasty, the Yongle Emperor ordered armies totaling more than 200,000 into Vietnam, and they ruled conquered Vietnam for almost 20 years. And after the death of Yongle, and after the exploration of Chung-hung, the Ming court became conservative. And during the reign of Shunde Emperor, he was the grandson of Yongle Emperor, ordered the troops to withdraw from the unpacified south, that is Vietnam. And Leroy was the founding emperor of Li Dynasty of Vietnam. And this dynasty was famous for, it was the institution of Vietnam was based on Neo-Confucianism. It was deeply inspired by the institution of China, in particular Song Dynasty. You know, quite a number of Song Dynasty noblemen fled to Vietnam and lived there. Devoted to a Chinese-style bureaucratic government and focused on imperialist expansion, which include the conquer of the southern part of Vietnam, the Cham, Jim Seng. Jim Seng Cham refers to the southern part of Vietnam, and Li Dynasty, Lai Chiu, refers to the northern part of Vietnam. And during that time, Li Dynasty conquered the Cham people. And also they have some meaningful contact regarding the ceramic making business. And Chinese and Muslim merchants import Celadon blue and white to Vietnam from the early 14th century. And it was on the route from Chuanzhou to the Persian Gulf and the Indian Ocean. You know, quite a number of Muslim merchants live in Vietnam, and they supply their local material from Arabian Peninsula, from Iran to the Vietnam for making the blue and white, the blue color. The blue color is actually the color because of blue. The colors is blue because of the cobalt blue effect, the cobalt blue oxide, which was exclusively found in Iran. They brought the cobalt blue material from Persian region to China, Celadon, or Vietnam for making the blue and white objects. So the Hong River potters shift entirely to production of blue and white stoneware. Only in the aftermath, after the Ming invasion, when the conditions of peace and prosperity make such thing possible. And these are the miniatures made by the Vietnamese craftsmen. And at the bottom right, we have two exhibits. Here at the first floor, you can see there's on the right hand side we have the green Celadon jar water pot, which was under the inspiration of the Chinese Longchuan Celadon. And the blue one, you know, there's no parallel examples in China. The shape themselves were typically a Vietnamese design, but the blue materials were supplied from the Persian Peninsula, the Arabian Peninsula, Alaba Bundok, near Iran. And given the intensity of Buddhism in Vietnam, the lotus naturally remain in highly popular decoration. This is the lotus design, which was applied in the making of the box. The Li dynasty encouraged the export of the ceramics to increase the kingdom's revenue. You know, the theme of this section is that is a third paragraph. The Ming dynasty government restricted private overseas trade much of that time, thereby providing Vietnamese and the Thai porters with an opportunity to fill in the income for selling their wares, the ceramic wares, to the foreign markets, which include Korea and Japan during that time. That's why no wonder, through visiting the museums in Japan, one can appreciate the good Vietnamese ceramic items from the Japanese hand, since they had filled in the Chinese trade income. And merchants in southern Chinese ports were also may have relocated to Vietnam, which became one of the earliest immigrants in Vietnam, to avoid the Ming restrictions. They still would like to make more money. And the blue and white stoneware were export from the home river to the Champa, Jimseng, to some other parts of Southeast Asia. And this kind of thing were expanding when China went into a period of withdrawal, losing ground when it re-emerged. So mainland Southeast Asia had a second opportunity in the late 17th century during the Ming and Qing dynastic turnover. During that time, in the mid-17th century, it was a transitional period, so-called by the history books, that Ming was declined and was conquered by some local people, such as Lei Jizhen and Manchurian guards, Wen Zhaoyang. And last but not the least, we talk about Thailand. The Chinese merchant may have been responsible for introducing pottery production at Sawankhalok. This work appears quite frequently if you visit the museums in Thailand. So you have to spell it, Sawankhalok. Though it is very difficult to spell, but through a number of viewing, I'm sure this important word, you have to memorize it. It is referred to the place of heaven in northern Thailand. And it was a center that eventually grew to include 1,000 kilns. Hard to believe. As a Sawankhalok, a small village, a small city, but which can include 1,000 kilns, ceramic factory during that time, and cover an area of more than 6 kilometers. And the Chinese techniques and the Chinese skills serve as a major sources of inspiration, even in Khmer pottery in Cambodia. And there was a king called Chung-hung. Chung-hung ruled over Thailand and founded the Sukhothai kingdom, which was equivalent to Yuan dynasty in China. It was the first polity established by Thai-speaking people. And they paid a tribute to Kublai Khan. It was such a legend. But it proved that Thailand had a very meaningful contact with the Yuan dynasty. And presumably, this fable stems from the migration of Chinese porters to the Vietnam and the Thai region during the death throes of the Southern Song regime, like what I have shared with you before. And they established kilns at Sukhothai Kingdom, and later established some kilns and taught the Thai how to make high-quality Celadon in the Sawankhalok. And these are the exhibits, which can be found also in the kiln site of Sawankhalok. which were made in 15th to 16th century. And you know, one of the most popular motifs in Thai, in Indonesia, Japanese, and Vietnam was fish. You know, fish was a good Buddhist symbol, which can represent the luckiness among the Buddhist beliefs, in the Buddhist beliefs. And so did it in the Indian religion, which can be referred to the god Vishnu. Vishnu, who was reincarnated as a fish and rescued mankind, rescued humans from the flood. 即係印度教嘅神係轉化成魚拯救萬民於洪水嘅，咁樣。This is a Yuan dynasty Celadon, Longchuan Celadon dish with twin fish, two fishes inside the plates, which is also one of the exhibits here. And a number of them have been exhibited in Indonesia, where during that time the kingdom, Majapahit kingdom, did a very solid relationship with the Yuan court. And even Yuan started a war with the Majapahit kingdom during late 13th century. And the Chinese ceramics played a vital role in the whole cycle of existence. It covers the birth, sickness, marriage, worship, war, or even death. And the ceramic continue to serve as a gesture of reverence for transcendent power, an adornment linked with long-standing devotion. And the last slide I would like to share with you is the two Celadon miniature figures which I acquired just 2 days ago from a Japanese collector. These two figures were handmade in Sawankhalok by the Thai people. And both of them, the lady sitting at the right-hand side, whereas the male figure sitting at the lady in the left-hand side, the male in the right-hand side. The lady was holding a baby, whereas the male figure was holding a goose or a chicken. Both the heads of the figures were broken deliberately during that time. Yeah. The reason was that to prevent, they intended to break the figures' head and then bury the two figures in underground to prevent the evil from attacking the human body. That is, which is quite similar to the Chinese word "dongsai." They break the figure first, and then let the devils to attack the broken figure instead of attack the living body. That is the old tradition influenced by the Chinese people. And last but not the least, I would like to recommend some of the books which this sharing is talked about, and a number of works has been cited in this PowerPoint. And I think Flora would send them the PowerPoint for all the students as reference. One of the books I praise a lot, I recommend a lot, is the Pilgrim Art, Cultures of Porcelain in World History. It is a very big book about Chinese ceramics, written by American scholar Robert Finlay. And also I recommend you to read the former president of Hong Kong University, Professor Wang Gangwu. He wrote his master dissertation entitled "The Non-High Trade, Early History of Chinese Trade in the South China Sea" in the early 1950s. But it's still a classic in doing, if you would like to do some research on the non-high trade. And the rest of them, the entire column here, is about how to study the miniature ceramics throughout the Han Dynasty to Yuan and Ming Dynasty. I recommend you to refer some of the books here, and also to study history in the palm of your hand. Thank you so much.
Many thanks. Now we can move to the Q&A. We have slightly more than 15 minutes, so a few questions. Who would like to start?
So you're welcome to ask questions in either English or Chinese. 普通话 and Cantonese would be welcome. Would also be welcome.
Yeah, don't be shy. Maybe this is your opportunity to share and also get some exercise in having these sessions in public.
Just curious, the last one you showed, the couple
Yes.
ones, you said you acquired them recently?
Yes, quite recently.
Yeah, can you tell us any story, how you got them?
Oh, that's an interesting story. When I visit my friend at his home, and I occasionally saw this kind of things, which is, of course, in my interest. Just because I will organize another exhibition with the Maritime Museum about the Maritime Trade Route, and I particularly like to compare the Thai and Vietnamese ceramics with the Chinese one during that in the same time. And I saw these two figures, and my friend just showed me the book. It was published in 1972. And the author of that book actually was a Japanese novelist and also a philosopher who did some research on the philosophy of death. But that book is about was about his experience in shopping antiques. And these two figures were believed to be acquired in Hong Kong during the late 1960s. You can see there is a meaningful transportation between Thailand, Hong Kong, then Japan, Tokyo, and then return back to Hong Kong. That's almost a circle. Yeah. And it's almost a very meaningful cycle for the same kinds of item to be migrated in every decade or every 2 decades. Yeah.
Any questions?
In the early slide, there is some shown nude portrait of sculptures. So why are the arm made of wood but not the body?
You mean why there is only ceramics but not the wood?
No, I mean the arms were made of wood, so they're corroded.
Yes.
So what's so special about wood? Why the arm were made of wood?
Well, I think wood is a kind of natural, organic media of making some other material, some other vessels, or even a coven, or some other parts of architectural parts. So people use wood as their media of making things. Had a very long history. It can be traced back to Shang to Zhou dynasty, Shang to Zhou dynasty, where you can refer to a tomb called Chung-hung, the kingdom of Zhang, which is in the present state Wuhan, in the Hubei province. There was a tomb which was full of bronze and wooden figures, as well as some wooden architectural parts were remained. Yeah. So, in the southern part of China, some may even find the wooden cultural relics, which were not corroded at all. Yeah, this is very a very interesting thing, I think. Yeah.
我諗啱啱個同學個問題係話，你之前 show 個 slide 入邊有一個圖係講嗰個有個 figure 係兩隻手係腐爛咗嗰個。
哦，係啊，係啊。
咁但係點解佢係用隻手係用木做，但係其他地方係用銅瓷做？
其實我頭先都答咗個問題，咧就好有趣嘅地方嘅，就係一個分工嘅問題。It is a kind of division of materials. Division of materials. They use a wood to make the coffin, and the wood use a wood to make the hands, such as they can rotate the hands. 轉隻手嘛。And also they have wood to form the what I have said architectural parts, which can be studied through the component, through studying the component, just like in Chinese 入榫啊。These kind of architectural techniques were exclusively when you use wood to be the material, but not pottery. If you would build a house or build make a coffin or make an underground architectural structure by using pottery, then it would be collapsed easily.
咁但係點解佢唔成隻用木做？
咩啊？
咁點解佢唔成隻用木做？
有㗎，有㗎，
都有。
We have some other archaeological tombs saying that a number of Han Dynasty figures, just like the one in Changsha Maolongdui, in the Hunan province, all of them the figures were made of wood. But in northern China, northern part of China, using pottery to make the figures were a tradition, long tradition, following the Chengqi Wang and some of the warring states noblemen. It follows the tradition. But whereas in a Chu kingdom, Chuo, which they ruled over Hubei, Hunan provinces, they used completely, entirely wood for their figures. It is a matter of cultural traditions rather than the practical issues, I think.
咁但係會唔會話以前嚟講嘅話，用木做同埋用陶瓷做嗰個價值上，其實同埋用法上係咪爭好遠？定係其實用係同一樣？
你用咧，我用英文答，因為有英文課係咁啊。In terms of value, I think pottery indeed would be cheaper, slightly cheaper than using wood, because you can make you can find the pottery in a relatively lower temperature. Not all of the items were fired in very high temperature. That is pottery in a big ceramic family. We have pottery low firing temperature, which is in a fine temperature that is under 1,000 degrees Celsius. We have a stoneware which was invented by the Shang people, Shang Qiuwei, and we have porcelain invented by the Han Dynasty people in the 7th to 8th century. So we have different materials. You can select whatever you like. Of course, it's price sensitive. But in terms of building a large mausoleum, building a large tomb of an emperor or a nobleman, cost is obviously not the crucial factor. Yeah.
咁如果對比而家收藏價值嚟講，有咩分別？
Frankly speaking, nowadays for the antique market, buying a wooden figure is far more rarer than acquiring a terracotta figure. But the market value of the terracotta figure will be more expensive, since not all of the collectors, just a few collectors, know how to preserve the wooden figure. You know, the weather of Northern America, Hong Kong, and some other countries are extremely different. Some are humid, some are dry. So if we have to consider, if I transfer one wooden figure from America to Hong Kong, it may be broken. Yeah, since wood is an organic material, difficult to preserve, unless you ask a museum curator to power the wood into a special liquid to stop the corrosive effect. Yeah.
我想問下係之前頭先講過明代係咪禁止嗰啲瓷器或者其他嘢出口嘅？咁係咪喺嗰個時候即係呢啲咁樣嘅技術就流咗去泰國越南嗰邊，定係更加早應用
？The making of the making of ceramics in Southeast Asia can be traced back to early Han Dynasty. Yeah, if you visit the museum of Vietnamese History Museum in Ho Chi Minh City, you can refer to some pottery objects, which is identical, quite identical, and highly similar to the one you can find in the Guangzhou. As Vietnam was part of China during Han Dynasty. After Han Dynasty, after Eastern Han Dynasty, the people of Vietnam got independence. Yeah, that's why they have similar culture. No wonder they apply Confucianism in their governing principles.
仲有一條問題就係話頭先你 show 到越南有兩個藍色嗰個壺，就話個 shape 係好 unique 嘅，咁同埋嗰個 colour 就係話喺阿拉伯嗰邊傳入嚟啦。咁我想問嗰啲顏色有冇傳去中國，或者仲有冇其他特別嘅顏色？
We have similar blue and white. You know, from China has a longer history. It can be traced back to Middle Yuan Dynasty. You can see refer to the jar, the small jar here, which was actually for export purpose, but it was made from cobalt blue material by the Jingdezhen craftsmen. Yeah, you know, Yuan Dynasty blue and white was highly appreciated by the collectors all over the world, which include one of the jar, which is about Wai Gok Chut San. It was a very classical story in the ancient Chinese novels, which was about the warring, which was about a war in the warring stage period. The potters during Yuan Dynasty just used the cobalt blue material to draw this kind of story scene, novel scene in a jar. And then some years later, it was excavated and was brought by a diplomat to Holland, and then kept it for over 6 decades. Then, in 2005, 10 years ago, it was discovered by an expert in a very eminent auction house, and it was sold for approximately 220 million Hong Kong dollars. Yeah, it was highly praised by the collectors, actually, for the Yuan Dynasty and watch objects.
One more brief question.
I want to ask for these miniatures.
Yeah.
Do you collect it from another collector? So is it possible for you to find it in the local market?
Yes, I think so. Though many of them have been acquired in different parts of the world, but some of them were I just acquired them in Hong Kong local market. Yeah, and some of them have been on the hands of some old collectors. You know, finding a miniature object was very difficult, and I encountered many difficulties in that, because most of the collectors, most of the galleries would like to gain money by selling a big objects. So even the tomb stealers, in mainland China, just ignore most of the miniatures in the tomb and leave it alone. And until 20 years ago, the Japanese began to appreciate these kind of small things and organize some exhibition. The first one was not in Japan. The first one was in America, China Institute in New York in 1977. There was a collector called Paul Singer, under the subsidy of a very rich man, a billionaire during that time, Arthur Sagler, who built a museum, private museum, and asked the collector Paul Singer to sponsor him to acquire a number of miniatures. And after Paul Singer passed away, he donated, as he promised, the whole miniature collection to the Arthur Sagler Museum. Which formed the first systematic collection of miniatures. And you can also refer to the books and materials, which are now in display in the first floor in the exhibition gallery. A number of titles, book titles, have been displayed until now. You are very welcome to see.
Many thanks. This is the end of our Q&A session.
Thank you.
And we will proceed now. Yeah, please.